Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing what Pope Leo said about Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's a little bit ambiguous, and he took a few days to get to saying it, and he only released the statement through Matteo Bruni, who's the Vatican spokesperson who was always giving us somewhat vague remarks from Francis. So you be the judge of what the statement that he released on Charlie Kirk means. And this comes out just a couple of days before he gives this first full-length interview. I'm also going to make some brief remarks on that interview. People are commenting on it. I didn't really want to put it in the title, but I want to comment on a few of the remarks that right-wing Catholic media is using to comment on Leo's sort of vague remarks in that broader interview that he gave to Krux recently. So that's today's show. The Charlie Kirk assassination has continued to be a cultural phenom, a horrible, horrible thing. But I've just been surprised each day anew, increasingly surprised how much, how ubiquitous it is in the news. I never knew that Charlie Kirk was this big. He's probably now a bigger name because people are learning who he was, even if they didn't know before his assassination. But it's crazy. The story is larger than life. Jimmy Kimmel has been fired from his crummy show. I guess he was only getting barely 6 figures of views per night anyway, for making anti-Charlie Kirk remarks or smug remarks on Charlie Kirk. And it just continues to be a force on Twitter, where you see jerks saying awful, heinous things, worse than jerks, monsters saying awful, heinous things and making jokes about it. It is a sort of cultural touchstone for whether or not you're broadly speaking Christian or Christian adjacent, or broadly speaking anti-Christian or anti-Christian adjacent. And that's why the Pope, who made these remarks 3 days ago, why his remarks matter so much. So we're going to talk about that today. First, I would just say to hit the like and subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. You can help just by liking and subscribing the video, particularly if you watch regularly and you're not already subscribed. The viewers make this show go forward, and it's the viewers on locals, because I've been canceled, I've been fired, and I've lost my Patreon account for just teaching the Catholic sexual ethics truths. So because I lost my Patreon account, if you want to support the show, do so on locals. Tons of great material. I do a show, a little 10-minute show afterwards. Each episode is extended by some, and I interact with the locals on the app. It's really been a great way to get to know my supporters. So support on Rules for Retrogrades /locals. We really need the help. We do need the help. So thank you. Also, now's a great time to get out of your blue state and get to a red state. Go to realestateforlife.org. That's the best thing you can do if you want to support your family, is get to a red state today, particularly the blood red swath of states in the American Southeast. That's the best thing you can do for your family, because it affects the most immediate change, where you don't have to mistrust most of the people that are around you. You can get to a really, really conservative Christian neighborhood like I did when I moved from the bluest of the blue, California, to the reddest of the red, South Mississippi here. We love it. And if you want to follow suit, go to realestateforlife.org. So Pope Leo, who's been a bit of an enigma since the first time I ever really learned who he was. I can't really remember if Cardinal Prevost was someone that was, I don't think he was much on my radar during the conclave. So some guys like Taylor Marshall and others put him on kind of a watch list. Here's the top 10 lefties that could come up. And this looks like it was ultimately had predictive value, because all I really knew about him that I said this is a major red flag is who were the kingmakers for Leo XIV. If you remember this, I've spent very little time on his pontificate in the last 4 months. But the kingmakers tell us more than anything. Personnel is policy. So we had Father James Martin rooting for him, Cardinal Maradiaga, probably the closest cardinal to Francis, and several others. Yeah, I went through those conclave and post-conclave analysis shows and just went through all of them. Who were some of the other the bad guys? Were Blaise Supich, and he's another one of the ones that was a big backer. And Leo, very early on, about a month into the pontificate, said something like, "Look, I'm from a long line of Chicago prelates, starting with most recently Cardinal Supich. Before that, Cardinal what's his name? Bad guy from Windswept House. Why is his name escaping me right now? Who's the bad guy from Windswept House? Chat, remind me. But so you have this lineage of Chicago prelates from whoever the bad guy in Windswept House is, through Cardinal Supich, who's a big backer fanboy, through Prevost. And Prevost was also close friends with Francis the last 2 years of Francis's life. Not to mention, Prevost's two brothers have both said he's going to be Francis Part 2. So that's really all we had in the first month of the Prevost papacy, the Leo XIV papacy. You know,
Bernardin.
Thank you. Cardinal Bernardin. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate from Iceland.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Flonkerton from Iceland. Yeah, Bernardin, then Supich, then Prevost. That is not an admirable legacy, those first two. So, you know, he had something. Cardinal Prevost had a larger than negligible role in the demotion of our close Bishop Strickland, and he was close to Francis, and he was in the, you know, a major player in the congregation of bishops. So it's never looked good with this guy. Now, I want to get to the interview he gave more recently than the comments he made about Charlie Kirk, but let's just read from VaticanNews.va. It says, Pope prays for Charlie Kirk and bereaved family. Pope Leo XIV expresses concerns about political violence, which is fine, and is praying for the late American activist Charlie Kirk, his wife, and 2 children, according to the Holy See press office. But if you look below, what did Matteo Bruni actually say? The director of the Holy See press office, Matteo Bruni, responded to reporters' questions on Tuesday about the Pope's reaction to the murder of Charlie Kirk. And this is, you know, 6 days after the fact. So he waited a little while too, which is curious. And I don't know what any of it means. And it's not an obviously terrible statement, but you be the judge. What was that?
Sorry, it was just the audio of this
That's
thing.
funny. I was like, I hear something. I hear echo. Here's what he said. I know that during the conversation with the new U.S. ambassador, the Pope confirmed that he is praying for Charlie Kirk, his wife, and his children, and that he expressed concern about political violence, and that he spoke of the need to refrain from rhetoric and instrumentalization that lead to polarization rather than dialogue. Okay, so I know some conservatives were up at arms about this. It could be, if he's speaking of the need to refrain from rhetoric and instrumentalization that lead to polarization rather than dialogue, in the wake of the murder, like, will there be right-wing revenge or something taken on the left simplicitaire, then that's fine. It is what it is. I mean, it's something worth saying. You know, people don't engage in vigilantism, particularly because the ostensible culprit has already been caught. The alleged culprit's already been caught. But it's a bit of a strange point to make, because one, there's really no one on the right that talks this way. It's the left wing that has shown its true colors. I'm not just talking Jimmy Kimmel. I'm talking not fringe or radical left people, just the left on social media and on TV and movies. Talking heads. They're just like almost co-conspirators after the fact. It's so awful. And that's what's really been making most news since the Charlie Kirk story broke, aside from the assassination itself. So I think that side needs to hear refrain from rhetoric and instrumentalization that lead to polarization. But I mean, instrumentalization implies that it's the right wing doing this. Now, some people were responding to this latter part of the statement, the need to refrain from rhetoric and instrumentalization that lead to polarization rather than dialogue, and saying that he was kind of victim blaming Charlie Kirk. I don't think so. And the key word here is instrumentalization. right? Instrumentalization means you're using this assassination toward polarization rather than dialogue. So that Charlie Kirk clearly wouldn't have been doing that. If he'd have left that off, if he would have left that off, and he just said the need to refrain from rhetoric that can lead to polarization rather than dialogue, I would say, uh-oh, this is almost like victim blaming. But I don't think that's what it is, doing a sort of plain text hermeneutic of what he said, because instrumentalization means you use X toward Y, and he seems to be cautioning against right-wing retaliatory violence, which I still think is the wrong message. I just don't think it's what people were saying it is. I don't think it's the same thing as saying Charlie Kirk got what he deserved. He met on September 13th with the new ambassador to the Holy See, Brian Francis Birch, as he presented his credential letters to begin his mandate. During that audience, the Pope shared his condolences for Mr. Kirk's family and his concern about political violence. So there's that. Now, regarding Charlie Kirk, remember, people were jumping on Candace Owens' case when she was saying he was on his way to crossing the Tiber. What was that story where we
Let me see if I can find it. Some bishop said that he talked to Kirk, and according to Charlie Kirk, this is the story, he was this close from becoming Catholic. Let me see if I can find
Which
that.
Seems obvious, given all of the other stuff that we and others reported and commented on. Seems pretty obvious. But folks were getting their knickers in a twist over whose right is it to make this kind of announcement. It's not a specific right to spouses or anything like that. Everyone is free to speculate based on reasonable facts. And here on Rules for Retrogrades, I hate when people make stuff up. I hate when people make up rules. You can't just make up rules. So I defended Candace Owens, and now it looks like she and others who are saying he was on the way to becoming Catholic were vindicated.
So Bree Stolstad says on Twitter, a week before being killed, Charlie Kirk told Bishop Joseph Brennan about attending Mass regularly with his family. He said, quote, "I love my Catholic pastor, and I am this close into entering into the Catholic Church. The truth, I hope we can..." And then that's the end quote. And then she says, "The truth, I hope we can now put this to bed. It's okay to be Catholic." And I believe Robert Brennan himself wrote an article about this on Angelus, and the title is "Charlie Kirk to a California Bishop, quote, I'm this close to becoming Catholic."
He was our bishop. He's actually the bishop who signed off on my firing at Garth.
Oh, that's Robert Brennan. Yeah. That's wild. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is right. Oh, that's...
Yeah, he's not a huge lefty by any stretch. Just I think a kind of one of the quiet, go along to get along types in our episcopate. There are many types like him. Not a big lefty or anything.
Somebody said something funny, or not funny but true, recently, and they said that regardless of whether he was Catholic or not before he died, if he's in heaven now, then he is de facto Catholic.
That's true. So. I mean, that's just good news. That's good to hear in lots of ways, but it's also it's important, I think, that folks out there, I mean, they're going to do it no matter what, no matter how many disclaimers we give. They're going to do this ad hoc rule fashioning, and it's really annoying, like don't read me your made up rules. Well, it's a rule for my household. We think only spouses should speculate about the potential religious conversion of their deceased spouse. Okay, that's fine. That's not a general rule,
There's some other Catholic response if you want me to play some of these.
Sure.
First off, this is Cardinal Timothy Dolan. This guy's a modern day St. Paul. He was a missionary. He's an evangelist. He's a hero. And those are his remarks on on Charlie Kirk. So these are just prominent Catholics. And then we have
Dolan's a bit of a wave rider, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes he's seen as center right, sometimes he's seen as center left. You got to figure out which way is the wind blowing, but definitely the wind is blowing in favor of Charlie Kirk. Good, even Starbucks has like a drink of Charlie Kirk's.
No, actually, I think that was another coffee place, but there are reports that people are ordering drinks from Starbucks under the name Charlie Kirk, and they're refusing to write it down.
I saw a couple of those. Okay. Yeah, and
we should go and try that out. I doubt in Mississippi that's going to be an issue, but we do have a university here. Yeah,
it's usually pink-haired freaks or nose ring freaks working there. So I just worry about what's in the content of the beverage. If even if they smiled politely. Now, some people were having nasty messages written to them beneath the the grab bar. What's it called on the coffee? The sleeve.
Yeah, like the little because why are we both struggling to name what this is? Like the little sleeve thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The
heat sleeve.
The heat
I have
sleeve.
no idea what it is.
The OptiGrab.
Yeah, the OptiGrab.
It's Steve Martin, the jerk reference, if you don't know. One of the messages was like, feel better, like a nasty kind of facetious feel better, allegedly written under the sleeve. But who knows if this stuff is real? But you go and you order Charlie Kirk's signature drink he would get is a tea with 2 honeys, I guess. And you order under the name Charlie Kirk. And yeah, some people reporting that, well, we can say Charlie, but we can't say Charlie Kirk because that makes it political.
That actually sounds incredible. 2 teas or 2 honeys and a tea. It's incredible. Here are the actual, let me play this clip. It's a minute and 22 seconds long, but this is Cardinal Dolan on, I think, Fox and Friends talking about Charlie Kirk.
So when I heard the tragic news, I said, I wonder who he was. And then all of a sudden, this overwhelming sense of sorrow and kind of renewal. And I thought, I got to learn about this guy. And the more I learned about him, I thought, this guy's a modern day St. Paul. He was a missionary. He's an evangelist. He's a hero. He's one, I think, that knew what Jesus meant when he said, the truth will set you free. And to do it, now, I understand he was pretty blunt and he was pretty direct. He didn't try to avoid any controversy. He didn't even try to avoid confrontation. The difference is the way, the mode, the style that he did it, always with respect. And not only was that a gracious, kind of virtuous thing to do, it's effective. Because when your opponents see, this guy kind of respects me. We kind of disagree here, but he kind of enjoys me. And he's thanking me for being here. And he's telling me he appreciates the trust I have in him and sharing my views. I thought, this guy can teach us something. I've been spending the last week reading about him. And so last night I was at NYU Catholic Student Center, about 200 students there. This is what they talked about. Wow. This is what they talked about.
No one ever accused Cardinal Dolan of being anything but a ham. I mean, just so hammy. You know, I don't care whether you like him, you don't like him, what you think of him. It's kind of funny that, one, he didn't know who Charlie Kirk was. 2, he spent the last week reading up on him. 3, he thought that Charlie Kirk was very, very blunt. But I mean, I guess Charlie was kind of blunt, but I guess 4, he did note that he was always polite.
So
but
when I heard
it's funny that he talks about him like a really cutting edge kind of blunt guy. And I guess compared to the USCCB, Charlie Kirk was quite blunt and quite to the point.
By the way, has the USCCB released any comment about the Charlie Kirk's death? Because somebody had said that they had released, I think, like 7 things about George Floyd. And that I know, I can check right now on Twitter. But I think somebody had compiled how many times they had mentioned George Floyd on their Twitter page, but nothing. Let me look.
Yeah, well, about
Charlie Kirk, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Bunch of queens. I mean, so look, I would say this. You know, whatever. That's good that Cardinal Dolan is solidifying the idea in the public consciousness that it's good to say good things about Charlie Kirk. I like that. I don't know why these prelates aren't taking it upon themselves to chide vociferously the awful leftist response. So my final remark on what Leo said, because he's American, he understands these things far better than Francis did as a fellow Westerner, fellow English speaker natively, fellow American. Why not say, hey, the left is actually instrumentalizing Charlie's death to say nasty, awful things. And this has been like a widespread cultural phenomenon, the most surprising thing aside from the assassination itself. So if he said, well, that's what I meant, it's like, well, why'd you cloak it in vagary? Why not be outright with your disapprobation for the awfulness here? Well, that's too political. Well, see, I don't like that. I don't care for that. Now, LifeSite, well, you're looking up whether the USCCB.
I just checked and there's nothing.
Yeah, he's a white guy, a white Christian. Don't expect a ton of love from the USCCB. A white heterosexual Christian. So the USCCB is like, he's not really our kind of people. You know, there's this LifeSite article.
I still never get over, by the way, their ice cream social that they had like 3 years ago. Every time I hear the USCCB, I just think about like the ice cream social that they had. I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, and maybe you figured they exchanged fruitcakes or something for Christmas. They do ice cream in the summer. I would say, well, yesterday the story broke that, at least the way LifeSite termed it, Leo XIV publicly doubts Catholic teaching on sexual morality and the immutability of dogma. Now, here's the weird thing. So I was like, look, I think Leo's going to be probably subtler trouble than Francis was. I mean, I said that the day he came out onto the loggia and the day after or so, but I will. And I think LifeSite was like, well, we got to give him a chance. We got to give him a chance. They've kind of reversed the order. I think a lot of the kind of trad Inc. people they were trying to look like they were going to be circumspect, and they were more circumspect than was needed, because, finding out who a pope's kingmakers are is time immemorial been the main way you get a good peek into what the program will be of that pontificate. So I think they overstepped then, and I think now maybe at times they're overreacting to stuff that's not as indicative as they're saying it is. So I'll read this and I'll go through, I'll say where I agree and disagree. And with me, it's never that I have an agenda to be nice to Pope Leo or anything. I think that there's some real comments in this interview that he gave to Krux now. I guess Elise Allen, is that John Allen's wife or something? Because John Allen also works at Krux.
Do you know when they posted this? I wanted to put on the screen.
This was yesterday. This LifeSite article on it was up yesterday.
Oh, it's not on Twitter?
It could be. Yeah, just go to LifeSite News.
Okay, go ahead.
In his first extended interview, Leo XIV fell short of affirming the immutability of the Church's teaching on sexual morality and strongly implied that changes could be possible in the future. I don't think that's factually wrong, but look how it unfolds. Although more muted, he also implied that he could change the Church's teachings on women ordination. When discussing his approach to LGBTQ+ issues with Elise and Allen of Krux Now, Leo struck in uncertain tones, suggesting that church teaching could shift if attitudes changed first. Now, here's what he actually said. This was a little less troublesome in my ears compared to what it was from LifeSite, but I've only looked at it a couple times. Here's what he said. People want the church doctrine to change, want attitudes to change. I think we have to change attitudes before we ever change doctrine. I mean,
what does that even mean? Like, I think my attitude is perfectly in line with where it needs to be.
I guess maybe. Okay, so this is where it can hit you differently at different times. That does sound kind of bad, but he's certainly saying it's not going to change right now. I guess maybe I agree with LifeSite there on a second look here. They write, the idea that attitudes must be changed before doctrine can shed new light on the recent events in the Vatican, including the audiences with Father James Martin, SJ.
Your naughty pet.
And the naughty pet, and Sister Lucia Karam, and the LGBT pilgrimage. He continues, and rather than stating such changes were impossible, here's what he said. I mean, this is pretty good. I don't think this is bad. He said, I find it highly unlikely, certainly in the immediate future. That's not good. That the church's doctrine in terms of what the church teaches about sexuality, what the church teaches about marriage will change. Yeah, you should have more certitude than probably not. But it's interesting all the same to say probably not, I guess. Later, instead of stating that the church's teaching could not change, he merely said that he thought that it would remain the same. I think that the church's teaching will continue as it is, and that's what I have to say about that for right now. So again, definitely not a hardcore
it's like
right winger.
Forrest Gump ending.
That's all I have to say about that. That is strange. This language is deeply inadequate, LifeSite quips back. The central points of Catholic teaching on sexual morality, including the sinfulness of homosexual acts, as well as fornication, adultery, and others, are not contingent or matters of probabilities and personal conjecture. They are definitive, grounded in both the natural law and divine revelation, and incapable of alteration. So this is true. I mean, this is fair, even if you think that LifeSite might be chomping at the bit to critique, which they weren't the day of, Pope Leo's election, they weren't the day afterward. I was kind of the only one out there saying, like, I don't know. The
I thought LifeSite was.
No, they were in and out. They'd done a report, I think, on, if I remember correctly, they'd done a report on Prevost, but then backed off when, with no new information, he just was elected. So I didn't care for that. All the people that were like, watch out, Prevost's on the 10 lefty Cardinals list. And then with no new information, they're like, well, let's give him a chance. That irritated me. And that was a lot. To
be fair to them, that was literally everyone in Catholic media, except for you and like a few others, like Anthony Stein. And it was like you, Anthony Stein, and like maybe Ed Maza.
Yeah, it was like, it was everyone. I mean, mimetic desire, whatever. Okay, so they keep going on about, we can know with certainty from reason alone, blah, 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 blah. We know, guys. Okay, you don't have to bang the drum. You're preaching to the choir here. Okay, then it goes on to female ordination. Leo also discussed the possibility of the ordination of women to the diaconate in similar terms. Now, this was interesting. He said what the synod had spoken about specifically was the ordination, perhaps, of women deacons, which has been a question that's been studied for many years now. There have been different commissions appointed by different popes to say, what can we do about this? I think that will continue to be an issue. So that's not good.
See, I just don't appreciate that.
No,
like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's not charitable. I hate Catholics overuse charitable. They're always like henpecking each other with that's not charitable, but that's not charitable. Just stop pretending this is an open question.
Right.
Because what it really is, it's weakness. It's just saying like, okay, I don't want to deal with this right now. Maybe not. We'll have to see if we'll get a bunch of people together in the room and see what they think about it at some point, maybe in the future. Just say no. Just say no. It's not possible.
Well, I mean, we're still, I would just say, I think it might just be incrementalism. So I don't appreciate that. That should be a very clear, closed question. Same as what he said about, that's all I have to say about that. It should be what he's saying about women deacons. And Francis at various times closed it off, then at other times left it open. So why not address that? If you're wanting to be really honest, you'd be like, well, Francis in these 3 instances says, no, it's not going to happen. Now there are these 5 instances where Francis said, maybe it will. Doublespeak. So Flaysite talks about in the early church, there was indeed an office of deaconess. I don't even think it was an office. They literally just in Greek called women who like prepared food deacons, because it means helper in Greek. So blah, blah, blah. But he said this. Leo calls into question by equating the female diaconate with that of the permanent diaconate established after the Second Vatican Council. He said, just one small example. Earlier this year, when there was the Jubilee for permanent deacons, so obviously all men, but their wives were present. I had the catechesis one day with a fairly large group of English-speaking permanent deacons. The English language is one of the groups where they are better represented because there are parts of the world that never really promoted the permanent diaconate. And that itself became a question. Why would we talk about ordaining women to the diaconate if the diaconate itself is not yet properly understood and properly developed and promoted within the church? So this is sounding like lefty talk to me. He went on to continue study and debate. If this is a closed question, again, if he's Mr. I'm not going to be doublespeak like Francis, then why not say, well, John Paul II closed this in the middle 90s?
It's like having a study commission to figure out if water is wet.
Right.
It's like, oh, please.
Right. Well, and
stop.
He specifically said, we don't even understand the diaconate yet. So maybe, I mean, that's basically what the previous quote said.
I find the office of the diaconate very funny. It's like weren't they just women who made food? Like I can do that now. Like I can just get a stationary like office of the diaconate of the Gordon household. It'll just be me, like the cook of this household, like, sending off official correspondence.
Yeah, even LifeSite called it an office. It's just the word in Greek. It just means helper, like food preparer. He also said this. He also said, I am certainly willing to continue to listen to people. I know what that means. That's not good. There are these study groups, the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which is responsibility for some of these questions. They continue to examine the theological background history of some of those questions, and we'll walk with that and see what comes. So I don't like walking with that. I don't like seeing what comes there, and it should be a more open and shut kind of deal. he claimed to have no current intention of, quote, changing the teaching, saying specifically, I, at the moment, don't have an intention of changing the teaching of the church on the topic. I think there are some previous questions that have to be asked. It's troubling.
Deeply unsettling.
Previous questions that have to be asked could indicate the revisitation of insurrectionist lines of questioning that have arisen since, around the opening of the council. So this necessarily implies, his life site notes, the possibility of changing the teaching of the church. When it comes to immutability, life site points out that V1 denied the Pope could change teaching, introduce new dogmas, which is well-known part of Pastor Eternus. It's saying, quote, "For the Holy Spirit was promised to the successors of Peter, not so that they might, by his revelation, make known some new doctrine, but that by his assistance they might religiously guard and faithfully expound the revelation or the deposit of faith transmitted by the apostles." This is the kind of stuff I was explaining to Jay Dyer in our debate. It's not his role to be some sort of lone ranger. It's just literally to, if you're going to vouchsafe some new dogma, check with the bishops and make sure that this has been what's been perennially taught.
Long-time supporter of the channel he says, "Bro, I love you. When will you come out and publicly admit Pope Leo is way better than Pope Francis?"
That's
Are you gonna do that? No.
Oh, I mean, why would I? There's no look, if it's
okay, to be fair, like, he's not, I would say he is better than Pope Francis, because Pope Francis was horrible.
Well, it depends what you mean. No, I can't. Sorry, I can't get there. No.
Sorry,
no,
Terry.
It's just not like
I try to get.
You're talking a flavor thing because he likes the the Villanova star infused New York Knicks, because he
knows what a giant foam finger is,
right? Because he's been to Cubs games. Like, that's the kind of bread and circuses that might get you guys excited. That's fine. Good for you. That doesn't do it for me. I care about the kinds of things that are happening with this Krux article interview, and I do care about things like who were his kingmakers. That's my permanent, fixed, pat, decided view of the world. That personnel is policy, and if he is with Bernardin and Supich and Cardinal Maradiaga, and was a Francis man himself, and both of his own brothers have said that, and he's a Father James Martin man, then he's probably not with us, and he's probably just kindlier, gentler, westernized Pope Francis. And I think, given what we know about the desperate need to revitalize Peter's Pence funds, and almost like fully a third of those around the world come from America, Pope Francis was hated in America, not just by right-wing Catholics, but with centrists and right-wing secular commentators as well. He's known for hating Nord Americanos, known for hating free enterprise economy, known for not really liking whiteys. So that, they had to revitalize Peter's Pence, and I still view this as probably what's going on. Now, it's weird because I was the only one saying it the day the conclave ended, the day of his election. And then I was quiet for a while. I'm like, even though I was not the one sitting there mimetically repeating the stupid mantra, give him a chance, as if it's possible not to. He's going to take his chance.
He's going to take a chance whether you allow it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I was saying, no, here's my prediction. But then I sat on it most of the summer. A lot of other stuff happened. It was a weird summer for the second or third summer in a row. Weird summer, lots of other stuff coming up. I was traveling a lot, went on a lot of different shows, did a couple debates, went on Tim Pool. I was about to go back on Tim Pool today, but just didn't want to make the travel. I will be appearing maybe in November with Father Ripperger. It will be a dynamite episode. But I did, even though I didn't say I was going to, kind of left the issue alone. And as it's developed over the last 4 months, it looks rather vindicating for those of us who were skeptical from the outset. But even now, I'm saying, okay, LifeSite sometimes has been charged of overstating it. Here, I think they're backing up their claims better than I thought, even the first time I read through this article. So they cite this part from Vatican I denying the Pope could change the doctrine. They cite Pius IX's syllabus of errors, saying divine revelation is imperfect and therefore subject to a continual and indefinite progress corresponding with the advancement of human reason rather. And V1 also declared that meaning of the sacred dogmas is ever to be maintained. There must never be any abandonment of this sense under the pretext or in the name of a more profound understanding. Same council anathematizes anyone who says dogma can be assigned a sense different from that which the church has understood and understands. Pope St. Pius X cited these teachings in the famous encyclical Prescendi Dominici Gregis against modernism. He also cited something like it in the Oath Against Modernism, I think 7 years later. So, the dogma should be handed down, quote, in exactly the same meaning and always in the same purport. So what I'm not getting is where they're saying, so his comments, I'm going to go on with this article. Leo's comments, particularly those about the need for attitudes to change before doctrine can, shed a new light on the recent events in the Vatican, including the audiences with the naughty pet and with Sister Lucia Caram. But the truth is clear. Homo sapien acts are intrinsically disordered. Marriage is between one man and one woman, and these teachings cannot change. So, I guess this is fair enough. And I read almost the whole article. So I guess the first time I went through this thing, I was thinking maybe they're jumping to conclude. But I guess I agree with the presentation of, with LifeSite's presentation of the juxtaposition between what Leo's saying and what he's sort of required by the office to say. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be a slower boat. I mean, the Francis boat was even slow, because he was really just hinting at stuff the first 3 years and then really got going in 14, 15 with the twin synods on the family. And then, of course, the release of Amoris Laetitia, which still needs to be addressed. April 2016's Amoris Laetitia. That's the main thing that needs to be addressed. I have my fingerprints all over saying that. That's the most important thing for him to address. I don't think there's any way he will. And if anything, he looks to be continuing that Dolan agenda program with the women diaconate. So whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty much where I always am. I have a knack for calling these things with the Pope. I don't find Leo nearly as interesting to discuss. Probably we all just have Francis fatigue, right? So
I'd like to get your response to this on that. We'll get back to the Kirk stuff. So some people had some questions about some of the news on that, but Stephen Cox has a tweet, and it's interesting. I just saw this, and he said Burke trashes trad extremists who promote Latin Mass ideology. This isn't some kind of contrary movement in the church, Burke told Raymond Arroyo. So I don't know what that is, because I think a lot of people figured that, Cardinal Burke was one of us, so to speak, on the Latin Mass. So we'll have to check this out and maybe give further comment on that. Look,
I'm not saying anything on Stephen Cox, but this seems to just be an embarrassingly a woeful misread. Because to say what this single line does is what I'd call normalization. A normalization of something good, some desideratum. So what is it? This isn't some kind of contrary movement in the church is a good thing. And this is where a lot of dorky or LARPy trads will be like, no, it is contrary. It's like, well, it's not supposed to. When something is harmonized or has a fine attunement to the truth, then even if culturally it's received as some sort of fringe position, its defenders and normalizers should always be saying, no, it's not a fringe position.
I guess this was, I'm trying to give Stephen Cox his due, to be fair to him. I guess Burke was on Raymond Arroyo and did like an entire interview. So there's probably more in there.
Maybe we'll
need to
review
look at that.
Well, what are some of the one-liners? Because that's a really,
so he says,
that's a strong presentation of TLM people. There.
So this
It's
is
not
on
bad.
coxnews.substack. So this is Stephen Cox's Substack. So if you want to see this full article, go ahead and check that out. But he says that during his interview, Burke repeatedly spoke of the Latin Mass as the extraordinary form of the Roman Rite, while also praising those who prefer it to the Novus Ordo. It is simply that they love the form of the Mass as we know it for as many centuries, and they find it so spiritually nourishing for them and their children. So I think.
How is that?
And then the next section is the folly of Latin Massism. So we'll have to take a little further look into this. Obviously there's an entire, he's not just responding to, sounds like to a line, he's responding to an entire interview.
Remember, Cox, I think, is an SSPX backer guy. So that there's more LARPiness to whatever you guys out there think about it, the society. It's a definite a real distinction between those types and parish orphan types. So, yeah, because I'm pretty much with Burke. Like, you don't need to turn the Latin Mass into an ism. It's just, it is a self-evident truth of nature. Worship being a natural virtue, religion being a natural virtue, that it's superior. Okay. I don't think Burke would ever mince words there. That he said the people that go are good. The people that go are getting more normal, right? Because it's been so popularized in the last 7, 8, 9 years. It's getting new blood in a really good way. And then, I think what happens is, if I could be really blunt, some of the old guard SSPX types, even if they're younger guys, get threatened by this. The Latin Mass, since, say, even just I've been doing this since, the TNT days, the Latin Mass demographics have changed. Partly because of TNT, if we're being honest here, but because of a lot of forces, it just got popular. Now there are a lot of fresh, fit, handsome faces, both men and women, that are regular attendees of the Vitus Ordo. I like Vitus Ordo because no one goes with that. But that, and maybe some of the molier, sort of cheap, bad-fitting suit, slightly LARPier types feel like you stole some of their thunder, like, oh no, now it's just back to high school. If the quarterback jocks or a Harrison Butker type is attending Mass, now it's just back to high school. Now I don't have anything over the handsome jocks back in high school. I don't know. It's a psych read, but this is the stink. This is a bit of the aura, inverse aura that's given off by some of these types. And I have no ill will toward Cox or really any of the society guys, but I'm just saying I have to go listen to the Arroyo interview with Cardinal Burke, but I'm probably more with Cardinal Burke than Stephen Cox on this one, if I had to guess, 70-30.
So some reaction, people were writing emails and what have you on certain things that in relation to the Charlie Kirk situation. So a couple of developments just on TPUSA, Turning Point USA. So Erica Kirk was announced as the new CEO of the company, and some people were writing you some things. I see some things in chat where people are saying, isn't this kind of a direct violation of the household order? And I was responding to some emails and I was just saying, well, that's only insofar as you have a husband to defy. Like, widows and single women are allowed to work. And according to what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, this is kind of a perfect opportunity for her to continue like bringing in income now that she's a widow. So is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those close calls, and then not my favorite topic to discuss. Kind of boring. Because there's the like woman CEO thing.
No, that I agree with. Yeah.
Then there's the, well, okay, but now she's a widow, and now single income house by its force of its logistics requires her to do whatever, and she's continuing to propagate what her husband believed in. So I don't know. It's just kind of a boring question, to be honest. It's not one of those. I get why people would be like, oh, go see what the case for patriarchy is, how it stacks up with the metric of the case for patriarchy. But these liminal examples, that I know a lot of people think are so interesting, that they're boring, right? Exception makes bad law. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm consistent. What I care about are the people out, all the so-called trads or all the so-called whoever, Catholics or conservatives or Christians writ large, who willingly just farm out their wives for work. So that's the big problem. You can get to the liminal cases at the end, if ever. But I mean, she's a widow, but still CEO. I don't know. Just just one of those boring kind of topics, if you ask me.
Another thing that was brought up quite a bit, we saw this a lot on Twitter. People were saying that she should be president.
Yeah, please, no, definitely no.
And it's like, yeah, of course, like our sympathy to her situation, which is great, and we've been holding her family in prayer. But it is interesting that people tend to go too far. And it's like with that sort of thing, it's like there's not any circumstance under which I would ever want a woman president. And furthermore, like if I can imagine that her time is going to be spent a lot with her children, which is the best thing that she can do right now, is just be with her kids or
just ever.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I mean, that's the case. But
this is why you have a sort of public class of commentators, because when people, left to their own devices are always going to under or overreact to stuff. That's just a classic overreaction. Of course, we're deeply sympathetic any way that we can help. I don't know if she's maybe a viewer of the show, or as a Catholic, we kind of have passed close by. I certainly have a lot of friends that are close friends with Charlie. And he and I never met, but we'd love to help in any way we can. But that doesn't warrant being what's one thing got to do with it?
No, I know.
It's just silly.
I've been trying to buy you that freedom shirt off TPUSA for like a week, and they're backed up. So, I think they have they say that every order is going to be like 12 weeks. So that's good. I'm glad to see that people are going out there. Now that funeral is going to be held Sunday at, I think, State Farm Arena. President Trump will be there. I don't know if JD Vance is going to be there too, but I know that at least Trump will be there. So, it's been remarkable. I mean, the reaction to this is still rolling in. Anyone who's on Twitter knows that this is still just dominating everybody's Twitter feeds. People are being let go. I think Destiny got kicked off of Twitch, and YouTube demonetized him from his comments. I think the Senate voted today. This is like so peak America. It was the Senate or the House, I forget, voted today to condemn political violence, and 58 Democrats said they weren't going to do that. So it's like some of these things are just so ridiculous. But
normally a measure like that's so boring that you're like, well, you can't deny it. Of course, today's the machinations of political leftism today is like, no, we'll go ahead and, deny that. That's supposed to be a gimme. That's funny.
Right.
I mean, marginally funny.
And I guess Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air, like you mentioned at the beginning, too.
They were probably looking to kick his fat ass off of the air anyway. I mean, he was barely breaking 6 figures of views, which is historically unprecedented for that show, that network. So they were probably just looking to kick it. I mean, if you look, you're not going to make it if you're a regular Jimmy Kimmel watcher. If you think Jimmy Kimmel's
hilarious,
funny, then I don't think I've ever met a Jimmy Kimmel viewer.
People are retweeting
left, right, or center.
People are retweeting an old Charlie Kirk tweet that says Jimmy Kimmel isn't funny. I guess he'd taken to Twitter and made that very, very good observation himself. So people have been retweeting that ever since Jimmy Kimmel got kicked off. So
I mean, he's fat. Who's fat? You know what I mean? It's like, that's hard to do. You can be Chris Farley and be funny. You can be John Candy and be funny. But aside from that, it's just like, what? He's just a smug little. Well, I think he's check early life on him.
Okay. I think, you want me to know?
No, I'm telling people out there. I'm pretty sure. I think Jimmy Kimmel is one of the people of the book.
Let me see.
I think he's a go to Wikipedia, check your early life. I think he's J-ish.
Let me see.
Which is, stands to reason.
No, he's a practicing Catholic.
No, I think he's one of the one. I know you have the Wikipedia. So and so's a son of a Presbyterian, blah blah blah. But you got to do the deep early life searches. A lot of them. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think he's one of the.
He's a cradle Catholic, but I'm trying to get a last name on parents.
He's an honorary Jew, let's be honest, with what he says about Christianity and, the hateful, awful, tone. He's honorary, at least. Some of them, it's quite hard to tell, but it's most of those people. So anyway,
Yeah.
He's gone. Yeah, so he's gone. Was it the FCC that kicked him off? That's
look.
weird. Admin law getting in on the act, if that's right. I saw that and did a double take rather than the network.
I'm looking on the Jimmy Kimmel show right now. Yeah, so he had an opening monologue. He said about the reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that we hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. So he made these remarks, and the story goes, the next day, right-wing media focused on him. And on the 17th of September, let's see here, Ana Gomez, an American telecommunications attorney currently serving as commissioner of the FCC, appeared on CNN to defend Kimmel's freedom of speech. But I'm not seeing where he got taken off. Sorry, let me see.
They were probably, like I said, they're probably looking to do it, and it was a confluence of forces. The way that's how that usually plays out. But no, I mean, that's absurd that there is this really weak media pushback to characterize what's the guy's name, Tyler Robinson, as anything but just your typical brainwashed left-wing troon. Literally a couple different levels, writing all these fringy far left messages on the slugs and stuff. There's just no. It was funny because Knowles on his show was covering the weak preliminary effort by the left to characterize this as a right-wing shooting, just saying, oh, his parents were MAGA or something like that. It's like, but we know what he is.
Oh, here's the part. Hours later, Next Star Media Group announced that it would pull Jimmy Kimmel Live from all of its ABC-affiliated stations, and shortly after that, ABC announced all broadcasts of the show would be halted indefinitely.
Great.
According to the New York Times and the Hollywood Reporter, the decision to suspend the show was made by Bob Iger, the chief executive of ABC parent company Disney, and Dana Walden, Disney's television chief.
It's great. I mean, keep that cancel culture going. We love it. But here, do we have a final number on the number of firings? Wasn't it well above 1,000?
I checked 3 days ago. Let me see. I'll look and see. I forgot to follow the account that did it, but
that black at where was it? That black at
the one that
Texas at a Texas State University.
The man that was like pretending to like mock the way that
blood
that guy
neck.
yeah
exactly. What's his name?
Texas
State. He started a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Had $812, right? And he'll get more support than that. Recently, I faced a situation where I had to choose between immediate expulsion or withdrawing from the university. I made the decision to withdraw, not because I wanted to leave, but for my own safety and the well-being of the campus community. Unfortunately, the only public narrative out there is that I am an out-of-control, disrespectful young black man. He accidentally capitalized black.
They do that now on purpose, by the way.
Yeah. No, I know.
Yeah. Oh.
In reality, I'm a passionate student who made a mistake in the heat of the moment. What's the heat of the moment? You were just sitting around.
He walked into a group of Charlie Kirk supporters and mocked and like pantomimed the execution of Charlie Kirk. And it's like, and he's now trying to be dignified. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Was that uncouth of me to do?
To mock the goriest assassination anyone's ever seen. After being repeatedly disrespected. Well, if you're getting... It's not a verb, by the way. If you're suffering disrespect, then, there are measures you can take that are appropriate. But he said he's being spit on, called racial slurs, and witnessing women being cursed at and pushed around.
Oh, now he's some sort of hero.
He's not really connecting the dots here. I spoke up, and while I recognize my actions weren't perfect, I did not harm anyone. Well, you spoke up by mocking a guy that just got, shot in the neck.
Yeah, and how ironic, because that's exactly what Charlie Kirk was doing. He was just speaking up, right? Like, I thought you could just speak, right? And there's no problem. This is the entire argument. And then it's like anytime that a leftist gets fired for speaking, now they're like, okay, now that's too far.
Yeah. Imagine thinking something as harmless as being called racial slurs is 1/100th as bad as celebrating an innocent man's murder. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
they just think, boy, the tides have turned on that. You know, people are like, look, man, I mean, racial slurs are funny. I get called them. I was a serious white basketball player, talented white basketball player. You're either coming up with counter racial slurs, or you're just like, okay, I want to drop 30 points on these people because of what they called me, or you just sort of shrug it off. But it's not really serious being called pee-pee poo-poo. You know, imagine thinking that calling someone pee-pee poo-poo, or the Latin term for black in a Southern accent, is like anywhere near moral equivalency with being essentially an accomplice to murder after the fact, which is what all these ghouls are out there doing. And like in front of fans of the person, no less. You know, it's like one step short of defiling a corpse in front of the family of the bereaved.
I know.
They're not the same. But for so many years, the boomers were really effective in brainwashing people that like, oh, saying a racial slur, that's like one of the worst things you can do. It's just, you could repeat some falsehood like that so many times. You know, everyone makes these in their own home. Everyone jokes about stuff, and everyone knows it, and no one believes they're the monster. But if you do so in a slightly more public setting, you know, through the 90s, the early aughts, even early 2010s, people were still buying that boomer line. And now, thank you, internet. The internet's just like, you know, it's not bad. These aren't really bad. They're very G, at worst PG, at very worst. Whereas, you know, mocking a good man's death. I mean, look, I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk about everything. He's a political moderate, but he's a good man, sincere Christian, nice to everyone. I mean, like, I was going to talk about his debate with Knowles about Catholicism 7 months ago. But I mean, even when you're disagreeing with him, he's clearly a good person. And that's what everyone says, everyone who knew him. So to mock that horrible, horrible, heinous thing that happened, you know, you just outed yourself as a monster. And you're like, someone said
Somebody was making fun of women.
Someone was making fun of blacks and women. It's like, well,
You're
good for them. Okay. You know,
Like-
okay. Can we get back to the point? You're a monster. Also, come on. He's saying he needs, let's be real here. This fundraiser will help me cover the cost of pursuing my education elsewhere. Okay, look, you might have been on a basketball scholarship to a community college, son. That you're going to get at most a 2-year degree in whatever, physical education. And you're not going to go anywhere aside from playing 2 years for a community college basketball team. You don't need a tremendous amount of money. You don't need to GoFundMe for your education, right? Or I could cover that. I can cover what your education's worth with what's in my pocket right now. Just some lint and maybe a stick of bubble gum. This guy looks like, at first I thought it was Anthony Edwards. I was like, man, Anthony Edwards is talking smack. Michael Jordan's son.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Doesn't he look like Anthony Edwards?
I haven't. I saw the beginning of the clip and I saw where it's going, and I just scrolled past, so I didn't really get a good look at him. But this is the same kid, right? Who mocked, like, he was actually acting out the death of Charlie Kirk in front of all of these people who were there to support him and have a vigil. It's just, and that does show you like the civility of the right, because like he. Can I say this, deserved an ass kicking for that? And he walked out of there like unscathed. Like all these people were there, and he really should have probably got one right in the mouth for doing that if there was justice in this world. And he was able to walk out on his own 2 legs. So
yeah, if right wingers were a little more sturdy, you know, I don't know about political hate, but you know, you mock. Hey, if it's a Charlie Kirk rally, and you go and you start making fun of his gruesome death, you expect to get popped in the face, unless everyone there is a race cuck, which I guess they are. Because wasn't it like some university
I think so.
Republican event? I mean, they tend to be kind of race cucks. But I mean, yeah, if I went to like a Jerry Garcia memorial and I'm like making fun of how has he died? Is he dead yet? I think Jerry Garcia is dead.
Who is that? I don't know who that is.
The Grateful Dead guy.
Oh.
Just whatever. If I went to a Deadhead, love fest for Jerry Garcia and I start making jokes about his ice cream or whatever in a derogatory way, you expect to get punched. And I wouldn't think it has to do with because I'm black.
That is the problem with America.
It might be because I'm
is
black,
that nobody's expecting to get punched anymore. Things worked so much better when everyone thought a punch was around the corner for acting like a jerk in public. Like that is, I remember being in Italy and they would act out when we were on the bus so many times, and like you would get up and like get in their face, and they couldn't believe it. It was like an immediate. Like they would roll over onto their backs every time because like, what would happen is that the Italians would start screaming and like shouting and like waving their fists around, and sometimes you had just had enough of it and you just like would stand up and get in their face, and then they'd just immediately like calm down and sit down. It's like because nobody is taking them on; they're just allowed to act like that. And I guess once people are allowed to behave that way, they just start doing it more and more, and things just get more and more out of hand. So that was an interesting story. Also, leftists were kind of, one more thing I'll have you react to. Leftists were throwing a big fit because apparently a black kid was quote unquote lynched here in Mississippi over the weekend, but the coroner's report, I think, deemed it a suicide and said there was no foul play involved. So, you know, they were freaking out about that. They're saying everyone's focusing on Charlie Kirk, while meanwhile lynchings are still happening in the state of Mississippi, and it's just silly.
It's just boring. Just boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
not worthy of comment. I mean, come on. You know how that's going to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
What? Here's something I'll say. So also, just update on the Gordon homeschool co-op. Man, this is going so well. So we ended up with about 16 families. If you were interested or you're on the fence, man, talk to any of the families that did this 3 weeks in, and people just can't believe how much it's changed their lives, and how effective, 2 to 3 hours in the classroom a day is, letting us cover it. So we will be enrolling people for spraying for January, starting probably around Thanksgiving. So if you were on the fence doing the Gordon homeschooling, we're not calling it Retrograde Academy. That's the all the other classes that we've had cataloged for 5 years. Then consider for January, because it's putting a camera in our classroom and just giving your guys' kids the education that our kids get every day has been quite the thing. It's gone incredibly well.
Yeah, we've been really happy with how everything has gone. It's been really great. And it's fun because our kids are also in the classroom with all the other kids too. So it's kind of their first time of being in like a non-Gordon child classroom.
It's funny.
100% not filled with Gordons. So virtually.
Anyway, that's what we got. Is there enough here for a locals only show? I mean, I should have covered, saved some. If you want to, we can also just put something up for them. Take comments, super chats, whatever. There was some super chats. There's only a couple. Let me read those for you real quick. Pope Francis denounced the James Martinization of the Vatican, though. But he invited him 100,000 times. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that just seems like more of this double speak. Yeah. Well, you denounce it, but then you say, well, I can't deny that it's not doctrinally protected against. And you invited him, and you didn't correct James Martin when he says. So that doesn't inspire me. Let me say it that way. JD said, my intuition, which may be wrong, tells me that he's trying to turn the heat down in the church, Pope Leo. Of course. And focus on the issues outside of the church, i.e. AI, wars, economics. Seems like he's going slowly on his agenda as a prudential matter. Yeah, but I mean, what's the agenda? That's the point. I think, like we told you all along, prudentially, they want the American dollars back. That's why we have an American Pope for the first time in the history of the ecclesia, Mm-hmm. So why now? Because they needed them. That's one I really wish I called. That's one I missed. I feel like I could have called that one because it would have been whoa, huge ups for predictive value there. And I really feel like I had that under the hood. I could have called. I didn't really see it, but if something had sort of tipped me off, man, they need those Peter's Pence dollars. Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes someone writes a book or titles a book, that you feel like that's really nifty. I kind of wish I'd written that book. Ideas Have Consequences. That's one of those books. Sometimes you see a book, a lot of Ed Fazer books. I'm like, I kind of wish I'd written that. Aristotle's Revenge. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. This is just a we'll see with Pope Leo, but I don't think it's going to be really good. He might end up giving Summorum Pontificum back. There's been a lot of whisperings about that. He might go a little further than Summorum Pontificum. Maybe, we'll see.
Somebody's asking in Super Chat, do we attend the TLM?
Do we?
Yes.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, we do it as often as we can, without one here in town. We go to the one in New Orleans frequently. Not every week, but as often as we can get over there. That's where our kids receive all the sacraments. When we go to the Boomer Novus Ordo parish here, we typically just
our babies are all baptized there, like
First Communion, First Confession, confirmation, all at the old church in New Orleans, the TLM church, the Vitus Ordo, right? But yeah, here we do Sunday obligation on a typical sort of busy school year Sunday. We'll fulfill the obligation at Mass without we don't tend to receive when we're there or whatever. The priest is nice though, kind of a lefty, but we will go and go to confession with the priest, and go to Mass, whatever.
To be fair to him, he's always like making time for us, for our family. We're always like the family that calls and like tries to schedule a confession.
Oh, and he knows who I am, and he's always. I don't think we got off on the right foot this particular pastor.
You did not.
but he's got a good personality. Some of these left-leaning guys. He's a really, really good personality Irish priest, and he's been kind to us. So I'm not going to say much more than the fact that he has been kind to us. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Is that the only super chat? Getting like 2 or 3 super chats is always you always want to hit a roll of super chat questions.
I think that was the ones that we got.
All right. Do we have anything for the local show? Do you guys have any?
I didn't. I think I asked you all your questions on here, so maybe we'll schedule that for the next show.
All right. Yeah. We're supposed to do everyone, but there's just not enough here. Francis said, sorry, Freudian slip. Leo 14 said, something adequate about Charlie Kirk. Could have been better. Should have addressed the political left's inclination toward violence more, whatever. Talk about women's ordination into the diaconate. Sounds quite bad. Talks about James Martin S.J. issues. Sounds measured with a view to keeping this open for maybe the Pope after him to do or so. I don't know. So there's just not a lot there. But it's Friday, and you guys need to get home to your families anyway. So God bless you all. Do hit the like, subscribe buttons. Do consider, heaven help you if you're not pulling your kids out of school at this point. You really need to be homeschooling. How many schools need to be shot up before you do this? How many times do you have to see bad stuff being taught at Catholic schools?
How many teachers have gotten fired for mocking I think that was the number one demographic of people fired for mocking Charlie Kirk were teachers.
Probably high school teachers.
No, I think most of them were elementary school teachers.
Really?
Yeah, because most of them, people were saying this person teaches like your second graders, and they're mocking a man's assassination. Like, you trust your kids around this person all day long? Crazy.
They're ladies? Are they mainly ladies or dudes?
The amount of women that got fired over this has been just
admirable,
just wonderful.
Yeah.
Incredible.
All right. Well, God bless you all. Have a safe weekend. We'll, as always, maybe come to you if something big happens over the weekend. Hopefully nothing big over the weekend. I think I skipped a show this week. It was just a 2-episode week. And we pretty much only come to, we need some time without big stuff. We had the Ukrainian girl get killed on the train. That was the horriblest thing I'd ever seen. And then the Charlie Kirk thing broke a day and a half after that story broke, even though it had happened beforehand. Before that, the Catholic school got shot up during Friday Mass. I mean, it's just been terrible. We need a break. So I'm cool with nothing happening this weekend.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Be safe. Day is full.